Turning on your faucet, dishwasher, anything else that uses water is part of our daily routines. But have you ever thought about where that water is coming from? It isn't coming from the river or any above ground sources, but it's coming from groundwater. According to Idaho Department of Environmental Quality, 95% of all Idahoans' water is coming from groundwater or water wells. That means pretty much all the water that you are around at work or home is coming from water wells, and with only a tiny exception within Idaho. For example, the city of Idaho Falls has 19 water wells for their residents. That is 19 water wells supplying water to homes, fire protection services, commercial properties each day within the city limits. I couldn't really find the exact number of how many water wells are in Idaho, but they are used for private residences, farming, commercial uses, pretty much anything that you can think of that needs a water source, that's what they're used for. I personally have worked for a water well drilling company for over 8 years. I worked for my parents. My father is Roger Buchanan, and he is the current director of the Idaho Groundwater Association and was a former president for the same association. A lot of my job was answering questions about water wells and other services that we had. But for this presentation, I felt like I probably should use a little more credible sources than just my own knowledge from my work experience and family sources. So I did some additional research. A few of my sources that I looked into are government agencies and other groundwater associations, drilling businesses, and such, to be able to gain more information. To name a couple of the places that I looked, Idaho Department of Environmental Quality, Idaho Department of Water Resources, and others, to be able to gather more information about my subject. I would like to go over how residential water wells work. These are wells that are used for households, but larger scale wells for like cities work it pretty much in the same way, but they just have a larger delivery system. First, I will talk about water wells and how water is being sourced from them. Second, I will talk about submergible pumps and how they use pressure to be able to supply water to a household. And finally, how pressure tanks are used for storing water and to be able to move water throughout a house. First, I'm going to talk about water wells and how they work. Water wells are a manufactured protected hole in the ground that reaches past where water is naturally stored within the ground. The depth of water wells depend on where the water is located within the ground itself. The starting point to measure where the water is called static water level. This is the point where the water level is naturally found underneath ground. Water depths are past the static water level, deeper into the ground, to be able to source the water for the water well. The well depth is deeper so that the well can feed off of the groundwater and to be able to store the water for use. The parts of a water well are used to be able to keep the water system safe and also for water storage. The well itself is a vertical boring, which is a hole in the ground that is dug or drilled. Then a stainless steel casing is placed into the well to be able to keep the shape of the boring. The casing also acts as a barrier so that no contaminants can be able to enter into the water system. There is also another layer of protection for wells, and that is surrounding the well casing itself. That material that is used is called bentonite, or another one that you might actually have heard of is called cement. The bentonite or cement is used to act as another contaminant barrier, and it also is to keep the casing in place. The well shape is also how the well actually works. The bottom of the well is open so that the water can enter into the structure itself. An aquifer is a large area underneath the ground that holds groundwater, and it fills spaces that are naturally in the ground or also man-made. Water wells utilize aquifers filling spaces with water by creating a larger space for the water to be able to go to. The water is released from the ground material, and then it fills the well with water, and it's stored in there because of the casing that's surrounding the well won't allow it to escape or be able to enter back into the ground itself. Now that I've talked about how water wells work in obtaining water, I will now talk about how water is getting into the house. Water well pumps have a variety of styles and they do different things, but I am going to explain submergible pumps. A submergible pump is a water well pump that is submerged into water and it's placed towards the bottom of the well. It is set in the well with drop pipe to make sure that it stays in place. The piping is also used to be able to connect the well to the plumbing system so that the water can actually be used. The pump uses pressure to be able to force the water up from the well into the piping and the plumbing. The motor is at the bottom of the setting, and so the motor itself is actually what is causing the pressure. The motor has propellers that go in a moving, spinning motion, and that is what is creating the pressure that is moving the water up into the plumbing structure. Now that I have talked about where water is coming from and how it is moving to its next destination as a house, we can finally get to the final step, which is pressure tanks. Pressure tanks are used as water storage. After it has been pumped into the house, a pressure tank is used for immediate water source for a well. Pressure tanks use compressed air to be able to push down onto the water itself, and that is what is creating the pressure inside of the tank. As the water enters into the tank, the pressure starts to grow, and then there's a pressure switch that will turn off the water intake or the pump. The pressure is released when you turn on the water within the house, and it starts going through the pipes to whatever faucet or appliance that you ended up turning on. Because of the size of the tank, a pressure tank is used as water storage. They will hold up about 90 gallons of water in reserve. 20 gallons of water in reserve. When the pressure in the tank starts to drop, the pressure switch does the opposite. It will turn the pump back on. The pump and the pressure tank work hand in hand to be able to make sure that there is a consistent amount of water that is being supplied to the house. It's continuous, and so there's no water shortage within that home. that is the three basic inner workings of a water well, of a residential water well. And I've just explained where your water is coming from by how a water well works. There's a kind of a lot that goes into where our water is coming from. Water wells are created to gain access to groundwater that is underneath us. Submergible pumps create pressure to be able to move water out of wells and into our homes. And pressure tanks are used to store the water and then also be able to force the water through the plumbing and into our houses. So the next time that you turn on your shower, you can be a little more aware about how that water got there. And if you can only take one thing away from this presentation, I would like it to be, you're not drinking river water. Thank you.